Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alan McGovey, the lead consultant of Experts.com, and welcome to the presentation of the Chinese National Consumer Goods Corporation (CNC) scandal address, where we'll be discussing and addressing issues that CNC's company is facing along the journey of them trying to globalize their company and, as a result, expand their operation outside of mainland China. So starting off with the presentation, I'd first like to give a shout out to our audience from the affiliates of CNC Company, Mr. Ruodong Chong of the senior management team of CNC Company's Shenzhen office in China, Ms. Julian G, the associate director of the marketing and sales in the Shenzhen office of CNC, and then finally, Mr. Tom Hansen, the European District Marketing Manager of the CNC Company. Please welcome. So, as a first category or content to discuss, I'd first like to give an overview of what is going to be covered in this presentation and where we're going to go along with it. Starting off as a first option is I'd like to figure out what type of company CNC actually is and what the industry it is involved in and how they operate at their currency. And then following up is a story I'd like to provide to enlighten you on what to do regarding the globalization of CNC Corporation's brand of Paw Bath Gel. And then thirdly, following up, is I'd like to highlight some of the goals CNC Company is trying to accomplish and are looking forward to celebrating the accomplishment of that are listed across the board down there, which I'll be talking about in a second. And then the challenges they would face along the way of globalizing their brand and company, and the ones that are already trending. So, speaking of the challenges, our experts have gathered their collective opinions on what the issues are and what they're like, and have generated some solutions and recommendations of our personal consulting team at Experts.com. And then the advantages and disadvantages of these approaches and the result of taking them are discussed along the way as we go. And then in conclusion, I'd like to tell you more about the Africanas company, Africanas.co, a school supplies manufacturing company starting in Zimbabwe, and how their product and brand took off from a local store to local distributors across Africa and Zimbabwe, and how they started off as a warehouse, a small warehouse whereby they could manufacture and produce their products. And I remember my ancestor and predecessor, my late predecessor, giving them advice on taking the decentralized business model, whereby they would have had to have multiple expansions across the world with various price structures and quality standards within each expansion, and not having that much power over the process of manufacturing the product and supervising it themselves. They instead chose to take the centralized business model, whereby you could just centralize your production capacity and capability in one single specific country or continent, in this case, happens to be Zimbabwe, and they're now still a locally influential company, have not really succeeded to globalize their company. What we're really emphasizing here is that the CNC company and AfricanAS.co are of a vitally similar scenario when it comes to the operation, but except for the fact that CNC company already possesses an expansion of itself in Europe, a European district, the marketing manager of which is present here with us today, Mr. Tom Hansen. What we personally recommend to CNC to take at this stage of having a bad image, company imagery and brand image is to choose to have multiple expansions and a decentralized business model, whereby the multiple expansions across the world have their own quality standards and that are different from other expansions across the world. And then, speaking of the goals, as the third category to discuss, the goals of the CNC company are to globalize and expand CNC business operation outside of mainland China in the industry of manufacturing personal hygiene and cleaning agents, personal hygiene products and cleaning agents, and being a top competitor in the global emerging markets, not just in Asia not just in Asia and mainland China. And then thirdly, to increase their production capacity as to fulfill the increasing demand of personal hygiene product and cleaning agents on a global scale. And then fourth and finally is to expand their popular bath gel Pose market and to increase its sales while reinforcing the Chinese national identity by relating the product to heroes and associating it with the Chinese ancient legends and sayings and other associations of the country itself and its culture. So the reason why people across Europe and other districts of the company that produce and manufacture the product have called the company have called racist of the company is, I believe, because they have actually related and associated the product with heroes that are unique to China itself. So it's really obvious. They just call racist of the company because they can't relate to the heroes and legends the product is associated with. So the characteristics of such products are of a local distribution, of a local distributor. But a company with a local scale influence is the one who chooses to take such approaches. The challenges, though, as we're going to talk about in the next category, are the controversial content of the commercial they have recently released on the product and how it has damaged the brand image. The challenges that might rise, though, are one of which are somewhat a bad impression that they've made across the different districts. They are to potentially construct and establish in the future points in time. The solution is, though, as mentioned before, take the decentralized business model with multiple expansions and various price structures and inconsistent quality standards, as well as low power distance over the process of manufacturing the product. The recommendations are also to take the decentralized business model, given the fact that they already have the expansion and the hardship they would encounter in case of removing that expansion. To conclude, the Africanest.co school supplies manufacturer is now out of date and have fallen, and by the way, have been called as racist because they've recently released a controversial commercial showing a black female changing the color of their skin to a white pretty European figure, female figure, as a result of the competition. So further information are available in the sheets, and thanks. Hope you enjoyed it.